Hello, here we are. So, yeah, we're doing that. Okay, cool. Thanks, Matt. I'm glad you're here to sort out the technical things.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
We don't need all that headspace.
No, all that stuff that I don't know. There's all this cool shit up here, though. Look, see. Anyway, okay. So, hello, we're back. We've been watching a lot of films all week, haven't we?
A lot of movies,
and
lots of movies.
And Matt's been buying a lot of movies.
I have buying a lot of movies.
You could have done a show and tell. Actually, you know what? You can do that on Thursday.
I can do a big show and tell.
Yes. Yep. So,
making good use of my time in the UK, buying UK discs I can't get in Australia.
So for those people watching, we're back here for a special retro discussion. We don't normally do Thursday nights, actually, because I'm normally a moderator on the Drinkers channel. But we're going to do a retro review of The Long Good Friday and Rise of the Foot Soldier, both of which Matt has now seen.
Yes, we caught up on the UK gangster films.
Yeah, we just finished watching The Wild Geese. How did you like that, Matt?
Yeah, I enjoyed it very, very much. It was good to finally catch up on an old classic that I missed out on all these years. So.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. So yeah, we just finished watching that. I don't know that we'll have time to do a retro review of that, but we probably can do one at some point in future now that Matt's seen it. So, look, Positive Phantom is here. So our Brum is here. Brogu is here. Fantastic. Very nice. David Macy is here. And you're correctly right. It is my birthday today, July the 18th.
Lance birthday.
That was the correct date on my adoption certificate, not 28, as Dad had told me previously. So I celebrated it on the wrong day for a rather long period of time and only discovered this error 3 years ago. So I've only been celebrating my birthday on the right day for 3 years. That's what happens when a 1 looks like a 2 on your adoption certificate. Very bad. Yeah. Anyway, so we're here to talk about some 90s pulp superhero films.
Yeah, pulp comic book adaptions of the I guess there would be like 1930s or 30s inspired.
Yeah,
but all made in the 90s.
Yeah, it's very kind of it's very of the era of the comic books that were either kind of or the cartoon strips that were in newspapers in the World War II era, in the 1940s era. You had little strips for things like the Rocketeer, the Shadow. You had Dick Barton was another one, which was a sort of very much in this kind of realm. It was a big UK one who actually went on to have his own series. Dick Barton, that was in the 70s or 80s, I think. And the Shadow and the Phantom.
Yep, and well, the Phantom has been running for decades, as far as I understand. And the Shadow started off as a radio show, and then in the early 30s, I think, and then became a comic book. But the Rocketeer was actually, though it's set in the 1940s, the Rocketeer was written in the 80s, I believe. The graphic novel, the guy who created it, I think that wasn't actually done in the 80s. It wasn't actually a thing from the 1940s, but set in the 1940s.
So 3 pretty similar films. Now, each one of these films was released about 2 years apart. The Rocketeer came out first in 1991. Then we had The Shadow in 94. And then we had The Phantom in 96. We are going to discuss these films in reverse order. So we're going to do The Phantom. We're going to do most recent first. Then The Shadow and Rocketeer last. Some might say we're saving the best for last. Some might say that. We'll see.
Some will. We'll have to see.
Yeah. So okay. So let's talk.
Has everyone seen these films? I mean, hopefully people watching have seen these movies. A lot of people I find now, I guess because we're getting older, you talk to a lot of people and they have not seen these films. Some people have never even heard of them, which is a real shame in some cases.
Yeah, I only saw The Phantom once, which is when I saw it at the cinema. I'd seen this. We watched The Shadow just the other day.
Well, I've seen that many times, but you caught up with it since the cinema.
The Rocketeer I own, and I have seen it many times. Saw it twice at the cinema, and I saw the trailer in America for it during my second visit to America. All right, well let's get into The Phantom, 96. So the Phantom, a descendant of line of African superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
That line may not go down brilliantly in the present day, considering the casting, but we'll get into that. Travels to New York City to thwart a wealthy criminal genius from obtaining 3 magical skulls, which would give him the secret to the ultimate power. So, in other words, a person travels somewhere to destroy a thing to stop a person from being able to do another thing. It's that kind of plot, from what I can tell. Okay.
And I remember seeing the trailer for the first time. I actually thought it looked really great. It actually looked quite Indiana Jones-ish.
Look, very Indiana Jones.
In fact, like it sort of was mixing Indiana Jones with Rocketeer, and it did actually look pretty exciting. And it was from an Australian director, Simon Windsor, who I actually really liked a lot of his work because he was the director of The Light Horseman.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. And this was one of Simon Windsor's early forays into American.
Yeah, Hollywood big budget.
Because he had done I think the Light Horseman like 8 years earlier or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, that was 1989 or 88 when they did The Light Horseman. So yeah, this was sort of Simon Windsor's one of his forays into Hollywood. So
I mean, I know you've met Simon Windsor and you've spoken to him certainly about the Light Horseman. Did you ever have conversations with him about his time on the Phantom?
No, I didn't have enough time with him to talk about the Phantom. And and I probably wouldn't have wanted to have that conversation because what if he'd asked me what I thought of it?
Well, we'll get on to what we think of the Phantom pretty soon. But like Matt said earlier, who in the chat? Okay, so first of all, who in the chat has seen the Phantom? If you've seen the Phantom in the chat, just put yes in block capitals, please. You can use block capitals. I'm going to let you shout. So stars Billy Zane, who was very much a kind of star on the rise at the time. He'd just done the Young Guns movies, and then of course Back to the Future trilogy. I think he was in all 3 of those.
Yeah, but not in a big role.
No, not in a big role.
But Dead
Calm.
Yeah, I think Dead Calm was really the thing that put him on the map. Written by Jeffrey Boehm, and Jeffrey Boehm has some good credits to his name as a writer. So it looked like it was shaping up to be a pretty good film. Like it had a pretty good budget. It had a pretty solid cast. Christy Swanson had done Buffy only a few years before. This was a very early film for Zeta Jones.
Yeah, it was one of her first Hollywood pictures.
Yeah, and and of course Treat Williams, who we lost recently, and as the bad dude, and Patrick McGowan. He had just done Braveheart. He was in the year before. He was the evil king, Edward the Longshanks in Braveheart the year before.
Yeah, so he was villain of the week.
He really was villain of the week in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
So it had sort of a lot going for it, and as I understand, a lot of it was shot. I think that a lot of the jungle stuff was actually shot in Australia, up in Queensland.
Really?
Yeah. The beginning bit when they're going through the jungle and everything, I'm pretty sure it was actually shot in Australia.
The bit with the truck, I mean, we'll come back to that, but that all looks like it was shot in a studio set to me when it's crossing that bridge and the bridge is breaking
I'm sure
apart.
It was.
Yeah.
But I think there was a lot of jungle stuff that was actually shot up in Queensland, Australia. That's from, if I remember correctly, which makes sense because Simon Windsor would have known it was there and probably advocated for it to be shot in Australia.
Well, let's talk about some of the background to the production. So Sergio Leone expressed his interest in the property in an interview early on, which is kind of what brought it into Hollywood's attention.
Because it's been around for years, the character.
Indeed. Joe Dante was originally attached to direct, so the director of Gremlins in the early 1990s, and he developed a draft of the script together with Jeffrey Boehm. So this script had got a lot of fingerprints on it by the time it went to shooting. But then Paramount pushed the film back a year. Dante left for other commitments. They were a few weeks away from shooting in Australia when the plug was pulled over budget. I'm quoting Dante. And the presence of a winged demon at the climax. So a year or so later, it was put back into production. Sans demon. Only nobody seemed to notice it was written to be funny, so it was disastrously played straight. Many of the unintentionally funny moments were cut after a raucous test screening. I foolishly refused money to take my name off the picture, so I'm credited as one of a zillion producers. So there's a lot of producers.
Seems like a bit of a troubled production.
Yeah.
And Joel Schumacher was at one point supposed to direct, it seems. And but yeah, as it was actually shot in Australia.
Yeah, and Joel Schumacher was considered to direct, but it was given to Simon Windsor. I guess he must have campaigned for it because he'd been a fan of the character since childhood. And when he traveled to Los Angeles to meet with Paramount executives, he discovered that they intended to release the film in July 1996. It was originally intended to be filmed in Hawaii. The production would go over by 10 million. So Windsor decided to film in New York City, Thailand, and his native Australia, reducing the budget by 12 million as a result.
Yeah, I guess us Aussies were working cheap back in 1995.
Yeah, maybe they didn't have to pay for such an expensive hotel, or maybe it was near his house, so you know his accommodation costs.
Well, I know where Windsor lives, and it's nowhere near nowhere near Queensland. I can tell you, it's he lives in Victoria, where I live.
There you go. Matt's got all the inside info on this one. So Windsor cast Billy Zane, like I said earlier, because he'd won praise for his work as the psychopath in Dead Calm. Zane was a huge fan of the comic strip, won the part after competition from Bruce Campbell and New Zealand actor Kevin Smith. And he spent a year and a half getting into shape for the right muscular look of the Phantom. I mean, I have to say he's in the best shape of his life.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it wasn't really a bad choice in lots of ways for the Phantom. Bit of a, I mean, I used to read Phantom comics, and I couldn't quite get my head around the character in lots of ways. But the thing with the Phantom is he passes the mantle from father to son. That's sort of the thing of that's why everyone thinks he's a ghost that never dies, because the mantle is constantly passing from father to son.
Right.
But the movie doesn't really go into that, I don't think, in any great detail.
That's a shame. Seems like one of the unique elements of the
story. Because he was, But anyway, it's let's talk about the actual film itself. You said you went to see it at the cinema, as did I. Went to go see it at the cinema. Very excited. I rocked up and I was like one of 3 or 4 people who were actually there.
Yeah, I went to see it on the opening weekend in the Warner West End, Leicester Square, which is no longer owned by Warner Brothers. Don't have a cinema chain in the UK anymore. But it's and it was on in the premium screen. And the whole thing got off to a bad start. That day, absolutely pissed down with rain. And I don't remember a lot about this kind of period in my life, actually. But, there are little things that really stick in your head. And this is one of them. I got absolutely soaked. And I remember I'd bought this chocolate cupcake, right? And the Warners had shut down and it had a massive refurbish. They'd redone all the screens, new sound system. And I thought, the Phantom, I quite fancy that. That'll be a good film to see in the big new screen. And I go in and I'm coming in. I'm soaked through. I'm dripping wet. It was pouring down outside. And this Jobsworth cunt of an usher goes, "I'm sorry, sir, you can't come in with any food from outside." And I went, "It's a cupcake." And it's like, "Yeah, no, sorry, you can't come in with any food from outside. Only food that you purchase here." And I said, "Mate, I'm going to put it in my bag. You haven't seen it." "Oh, but I have seen it." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to eat it in here, so therefore I'm not eating food that I brought from outside. It's just it's in my bag." And he said, "No, I've seen it." And I said, "Okay, well, so if I come out and I come back in, you're going to search my bag?" "Yes." "Right." Wow. So I said, "Right, okay, right. There's a bin over there." And he said, "We can't come in." "Well, I'm going to go and put it in the bin then, because you're not going to let me eat it." So I just pushed past him and I put it in the rubbish bin. I said, "Happy?" Right. So then I was desperate to use the toilet, and I went downstairs to the toilets, which were woefully inadequate for the number of screens they had. And the toilet was bust and it wasn't working. And so to add insult to injury, not only did they take my cupcake off me, but their toilets weren't working. And I got in to see the film, and I was already in a very pissed off mood, soaked through to the skin. And then the film starts. I just remember coming out of the movie being completely like kind of, there wasn't, I can't, if I look back now, I can't think of like one particular scene or moment in the film where I go, God, that bit was good.
Mm.
But I can look back to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is I saw even longer ago than this, and I can, I could think of 4 moments right off the top of my head now that all still stick in my memory. The fact that I can't think of anything, from this is that's a poor sign.
Which is interesting because Jeffrey Bowen was the writer was either one of the writers or the writer of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
No way.
Creepy. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Why don't we have a check? Why don't we check your album up there and see if I'm right?
Yeah, that's a good excuse to get it down and put it in shot. So we'll just do that. So guys, if you have seen The Phantom, put yes in the chat. Only Brogu so far has said yes, he's seen it. And what would you give it out of 10 on IMDb?
So yeah, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I'm pretty sure that that was written by Jeffrey Bowen, which is another reason why I was excited.
So
looking in the credits down here.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Bowen, am I right? Written by, screenplay by.
Says written by, screenplay by Jeffrey Bowen.
There you go.
In brackets, see, I told you so. Sign Matt. Close brackets.
Yeah. So there you go. So you've got the writer of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the director of The Light Horseman, an Aussie, and I was championing an Aussie.
And Billy Zane, who's a pretty decent actor and is in great shape.
Yeah. And strong character actors playing the villains. Why didn't this? And yet, I remember when I went to go see it in the cinema with my friend Peter Sylvester, who is now the DOP on all my films, or most of my films. We rocked up there eager as anything, and within first 10 minutes, I knew I was in trouble. In the first 10 minutes, the action scene with this guy, what's his name?
That's James Remar.
James Remar,
who obviously got kicked off Aliens.
Aliens, yeah. And I'm glad because he's really poor in this, and I distinctly remember his acting being very, very hammy.
Right.
And I remember, just within 10 minutes, I was like, oh, okay, this film's very weak, very, very poorly done. And
was Patrick McGoohan playing his dad? Or was he playing he playing the villain? He must have been playing a villain, surely.
I thought I can't remember. I've seen it twice, in the one time in the cinema, and then years later, thinking about it, I thought, no, maybe I misjudged this film. Maybe it was better than what I remember, and I just didn't get it the first time. And so I watched it again, and I actually didn't finish it because I thought it was even worse than I remembered. So I actually turned it off and never bothered to finish. And I cannot even remember if Patrick McGoohan plays a villain or a good guy. That's how much impact the film has on me.
I mean, you've got a pretty decent cast. You've got Treat Williams. You've got character actors good. Like Bill Simitrovich, who's a very good actor.
And look at the production. I mean, it's quite lavish. It looks good. It's been well photographed.
One of the things I think we can say about all 3 films tonight is that the production design on all 3 is amazing.
Yeah, they really got a beautiful 40s aesthetic. They've got that lovely, rich film that the 90s was so good for.
Leroy's reminded us McGoohan was playing Billy Zane's dad, but as a ghost. That's right. Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that now.
See, that's weird that it's a ghost, because I didn't think that there was anything supernatural about the Phantom in the comic books. Like I said, there was no ghosts in it, really. That was part of the Phantom's trick.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not a Phantom lore expert, so maybe I'm getting it wrong, but
what did we think of Catherine the ladies? What do we think of the ladies in this? Catherine Zeta-Jones, Kirsty Swanson.
Well, of course, Zeta-Jones wasn't Zeta-Jones back then. She was just a pretty lady who's playing a villain. And
I thought she was quite good.
I actually thought she was rubbish.
Oh, did you
absolute rubbish? I thought she was.
Really?
I remember I didn't know who she was, but I remember even in the cinema, watching this unknown woman acting. I thought, oh my God, she's laying it on so thick. It's so pathetic. It's so weak. And I was surprised years later to actually learn that woman was actually Zeta Jones, because by the time Zorro came out, I think she had improved vastly.
She was good in Zorro.
Oh, she was wonderful in Zorro, and she's a really good actress. But if you go back and look at the Phantom, she's really, really bad.
She's like a villainess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
See, I mean, it's so long ago, I can't. She kind of wears like these big like black skin tight outfits.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But she's laying it on so thick, and it's really corny. Really, I think that's the word for me that really sums up the Phantom. It's really, really corny.
I wasn't too sure about the purpleness of Billy Zane's costume.
It was a bit too purple.
It was a bit too purple, wasn't it? It was a bit,
and I thought
he could have been called the Purple Helmet, and it would have been a good costume for a superhero. Called the Purple Helmet.
I thought Kirsty Swanson was really she looked great, and with that red hair, she looks even better. But again, she was weak and had no charisma, like she didn't want to be there or something.
That may well have been the case.
Yeah, maybe she was just Yeah, there you go, Zeta Jones in her black.
Yeah,
but she was just hamming it up, and I think that really is the film. It's really hammy.
Right.
So I just hope Simon Winston doesn't hear me say this, because I really like Simon. I have a lot of respect for him, but this film is just unfortunately a dud.
That is a very purple outfit. It is.
I mean, but to be fair, that he was always really purple in the comic books. But then again, you get away with.
But that's a comic book.
Comic books.
Yeah, you know, he does look like a superhero called the Purple Helmet here.
Sorry. It's almost quite funny now. He almost looks like something you'd see in almost a piss take of a superhero film.
Yeah, or like the Boys.
Yeah,
you know, someone in the Boys.
Yeah,
but Leroy is rooting for Billy Zane here in his skin tight outfit. He said hubba hubba. I'm assuming that's what you meant, Leroy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So I think I don't think they got the color of his costume right. Quite.
No.
Maybe not even entirely the look of his costume right, but the rest of the production design is good.
There's a lot of quippy banter, as I remember, like sort of one-liners and quippy little stuff, and you know, trying to make it. I mean, obviously, it's got its tongue in its cheek. The movie has, right. But I just don't think that the actors or the direction. It doesn't pull off the humor, and it just comes off as really weak.
Yeah,
and you don't. Like, I remember this scene where she cracks onto him, and she's only just met him, and she's already doing this, and it's just.
Yeah,
you're going, why? Why is this character doing this? It's really quite bizarre.
I seem to recall that the gunplay sequences in it were not particularly well directed.
No,
as well.
No,
because I can't remember any of them, and I'm an advocate of really good action scenes. We just watched a great action film, and I was talking about some of the stuff in that.
Yeah, no, it's not. It hasn't been well.
No.
Yeah, it hasn't been well done, and it's so.
Oh yeah, this scene with the plane was pretty naff.
Yeah, I can barely remember it, but
I remember it being naff. That's all I can remember about it.
I remember the Phantom being a bit weak as a hero. Like, sometimes he was easily foiled, or he would do things, and he was not as powerful and in control, and he was a bit. It was a really quite a bizarre experience watching this film. I didn't know what the filmmakers were going for personally.
Right.
Is this a comedy? Is this meant to be Indiana Jones-ish? What is this?
Right.
Yeah. And I remember this was actually one of the first films I saw Treat Williams in. And
not the best introduction for
Treat. It wasn't the best introduction for Treat.
He has done much better films than this, and may he rest in peace. Great actor. Yeah, I mean, differences of opinion in the chat. Some people liking this film, some people not liking it.
Yeah, look, I do know there are a lot of people that really like this film. Like, they grew up with it. A lot of people who grew up with it as kids, and so they have a soft, nostalgic, attachment to it. A lot of people, it's as I understand, it's kind of gained a bit of a cult following over the years, but I'm afraid it's just not one I've ever been able to.
So a
get onto.
A couple of hoodlums. The guy on the left doing his best to look like Robert Downey Jr.'s kind of more thuggish brother there. It was like, there's some films that I've seen once at the cinema, and I just made a decision there and then. I'm not going to rent this film. I'm not going to own this film. And sometimes it's because a film will be so disturbing it's done its job, but it's got no rewatch value for me. I don't particularly want to own it.
You don't want to go through that trauma again.
No, this was not one of those.
No.
Other times they're just so weak and forgettable. You'd like okay, so like I saw The Untouchables, different example, gangster film, but a couple of years earlier than this. So that came out 88, I think 87. And as soon as I saw it at the cinema the first time, not only did I know that I wanted to go back and see it at the cinema again, but I knew that one day I was going to own this movie.
Yeah,
on VHS, and now of course I have it on Blu-ray and all that. You know,
and I felt very much the same. And the thing is, I wanted to like this film. I ran to the cinema on opening weekend to see this film.
You ran,
right? Yeah. So I was really, really looking forward to it because there was remember this. We didn't have many comic book movies at this time in '95. You had Batman, you had Batman Returns, Dick Tracy,
Dick Tracy,
Rocketeer. We just had The Shadow, and then this, and I was loving it. I was really digging it. There was no Marvel in this time.
Yeah, I mean, what a happy time that was.
You know, the only Marvel film we had was like that Captain America film that was done.
Albert Boone's.
Yeah, but that didn't get anything. That did not get wide distribution. So
that's where they filmed in Thailand. That's that famous Phuket beach.
Yeah. The one, I think the one where they filmed the beach.
Yeah, I think it is.
And the beach. That's a bloody good film. I love it.
That's a discussion for another time.
I'm a massive defender of the movie The Beach. I think it's a marvelous film.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Marvelous film.
Have you read the book?
No, and I don't care to. I saw the movie. I love the movie, and I'm sure the book's got differences, but I really like the movie for what it is.
Cool. Well, I could have said some things about that, but I won't go down that rabbit hole.
No,
okay,
that's
so
for another discussion.
we're gonna wrap up on the Phantom. I'm just gonna shout out a couple of other tidbits about it. So the film suffered from the same fate as the other two period piece comic book pulp adaptations of the 90s, The Shadow and the Rocketeer. Did not fare very well at the box office, debuting number 6 weekend of June 7th. It did sell well on VHS and DVD.
Yeah, and I think like those other two films that we're going to be talking about, they also found more audience once they hit home video. Yeah. So, but I'm going to say that if I was to give it out of 10, I'm going to have to give the Phantom a 4.
It's a 4 from me also, actually. Yeah. I give it, and I'm giving it slightly higher marks. Leroy disappearing with you, so Matt will come back and defend The Beach during the Beach stream. Leroy, The Beach was a terrible movie, DiCaprio's worst movie ever.
Interesting.
DiCaprio did have a huge influence over the script, and in the book, the thing I was going to mention, I'll mention it now, was that in the book, that character never has an affair with the leader of the people on the island.
Oh, okay.
And DiCaprio was DiCaprio's idea, and I actually think that was a mistake. I thought that destroyed the film for me, but I liked it up until that point.
Didn't bother me, but anyway, no, I actually really liked it. I thought it was a really good film. But anyway, there you go. This is what film is all about. It is subjective. It is art, and we all have different things about it.
David Macy agreeing with me. Poor superhero costume looks like a purple mocap suit. Like I said, that's the superhero costume for the purple helmet. But
it was the mid-90s, and we didn't have many of these superhero films around. So I think the world was still finding its feet when it came to superhero films.
Now here's a funny thing that I did not know. In 2008, did you know that they were considering making a sequel to The Phantom? With Zane and Swanson and Zeta-Jones returning in their roles.
Why?
And then instead of the sequel, then it became a reboot called The Phantom Legacy. And then that was Sam Worthington was being considered for the lead. And then by 2014, all of that was all had fallen through, and producer Mark Gordon is still attached to do a Phantom reboot.
It is interesting that they haven't rebooted this character with the all the superhero films that have exploded. Why has the Phantom not been returned to? And I wonder if this film's failure, because it was a disappointment commercially and critically, I wonder if that has pretty much soured the any future adaptations, because it isn't part of the Marvel canon.
Well, guys in chat, if you've seen the film, rate the film out of 10 now. Stick your numbers in the chat, please. David Macy, Leroy, Jim, Sir Clueless. What do you give? And anyone else, what do you give The Phantom out of 10 on IMDb? If you're just watching, thank you for tuning into the channel. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't done it already. And if you can be even more generous, do a little post and share the stream. See if we can get even more people coming along. I just want to mention a couple of the cast. Casey Siemaszko, of course, was in Young Guns.
Yes. He was quite a few films in the 90s.
Yeah, and he's got a little...
He's actually a good actor.
He is a good actor, and he's got a little role in this. This actor I really like in everything he's in.
Oh, yeah, I recognize him.
Now, Kari Hiroki Tagawa, I think I pronounced that right. I remember him from The Last Emperor, which I saw many times because I was working at the cinema when it was on. He's also been in Mortal Kombat. He's actually one of the apes, I think, in Planet of the Apes.
He pops up a lot. I mean, does recognize his face.
Mortal Kombat 11, there you go. And he does a lot of computer games, voices, and things of that nature. I really like him. I think he's
I don't remember him in The Phantom, but yeah,
I think he's sort of one of the kind of mini villains.
Okay, yeah,
if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there are some.
Leroy pointing out that David Provo was also in The Sopranos. So Leroy's given it 8 out of 10. Anyone else?
Wow.
If you're going to chuck
Leroy, 8 out of 10 for that one, but hates the beach. And I love the beach, and I hate this film. So there you go.
We're giving it 4 out of 10. So
we're giving it a joint 4 out of 10 for the poor Phantom. I really wanted to love it. I'd love to push those numbers up, but I have tried again. I have tried to like it, and I'm afraid I can't. So.
Shall we move on?
Let's move on to The Shadow.
Let's move on to The Shadow. So I watched The Shadow again for the second time.
The second time since 95 or 94 when it came out.
Second time since it came out, yeah. And 94. I have to say that I did enjoy watching it because there was a lot in the film to like. But before we get on to our opinions, let's just talk about the film in a little more general terms. Okay, so this came out 2 years earlier, as we've already kind of given away. All of these films suffer from box office failure. By the way, Matt's just adding a cushion now, so he can get taller than me.
That's it.
On the seat,
I'm feeling like a hobbit again.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want that, man. No.
Everyone's going to be convinced I'm a little hobbit from Australia.
Therefore, we all know that all the hobbits came from New Zealand. So, in fact, well, they didn't, because
maybe I'm a descendant of someone that swam over to Australia.
So, producer Martin Bergman, pretty big producer, bought the rights to The Shadow in 1992. Robert Zemeckis was first involved in it. Sam Raimi did a big pitch for it because he was really interested. His pitch for The Shadow sadly was ignored. I would have been quite interested to read the Sam Raimi.
But when he went on to do Darkman out of it.
That's right, yeah.
Because that's why there's Darkman and The Shadow there's some DNA there.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Darkman?
You know, I've never actually seen it.
I can't. It was kind. I mean,
saw bits of it, and I just went, "Oh, I don't think I like this," and I never finished.
It's a fun, pulpy B movie that kind of is betrayed a bit by its budget. I think I probably give it a 6.5 out of 10. For me.
Yeah.
So, an attempt to differentiate The Shadow from other superhero films of the time, they kept focusing on the copy line, which was "Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men." And then there was also that "Who knows the Shadow knows." I remember that was always on the trailer. Who knows the Shadow knows? So they were trying to sort of make him a bit different, and you know, and there was a lot of different ideas in this film, maybe too many, so that it didn't quite gel for me. But I'll come back to that. Good production value, pretty big budget. Shout that sort of bookended The Shadow's release. Do you know what they were?
No.
The Lion King.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
That's not going to help any film, is it?
Yeah.
And then Mask with Jim Carrey.
Of course.
Which kind of has one big toe in this camp.
It does.
Tonally.
It does. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is that pulpy comic book sort of
Yeah, so we're talking about Russell Mulcahy.
Yeah.
Now, Jim has said, wasn't he fired from Rambo 3? He was, and the director who took over from him, who's a friend of mine, we interviewed him, and the interview was on the channel, but YouTube took it off because I showed too many clips of Bridge Too Far and all the other stuff that he had also done Second Unit on. And it's a fantastic interview. We're going to try it with Peter. His surname escapes me. We're going to try and record it again. We're going to
try to get Mulcahy. I'm friends with Mulcahy on Facebook.
Oh, mate, let's try and get him on.
Well, let's ask, but I don't know if he will. But
man, maybe we could get Mulcahy and Peter on together. Now that would be
awesome. That'd be it.
No, I don't think so, because I think there was no bad intention from Peter. Basically, got pulled in and said, as Mulcahy was being driven back to his hotel in the middle of the night, and when he got there, it's like you said, all his bags and everything
were all packed and ready to go.
Packed and ready. They'd already emptied out his room, ready to take him to the airport.
It's a shame with Mulcahy because he obviously did Highlander, which was so wonderful, and then his Highlander 2 that all went to pot, and
Planet Zanussi.
Yeah, so he seems to he's had some trouble with productions. Poor Russell has.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because he's a wonderful visual director. Great eye.
Yeah.
Well, great eye. I mean, if you've seen Razorback.
Yeah.
And of course, Highlander, he has a fantastic eye for visuals. So I can see that why they picked him for the Shadow.
Well, Peter McDonald, I remembered his surname now. Peter McDonald was the second unit director on Rambo 2, so he already knew Sly Stallone. And Sly called him in and said, Peter, you're going to take over as director tomorrow. Russell's been fired.
Wow.
And he said, well, no, I'm not. Now, what the Peter didn't want to do it. The only reason he agreed to do the job was, see, the second unit still used the same crew as the main unit, and they break them up. So if Peter had said no, what would have happened was a new director would have come in with a new DOP, and the new DOP would have had all his own grips and his own crew. So you wouldn't have just had Russell getting fired. Half of the crew on that film would have lost their jobs if Peter hadn't agreed to take the reins. So he was put in this horrendous position where, he didn't really want to jump into Russell's shoes, but he also didn't want to see 40 other people get fired.
Wow, that's a bad situation to be in.
Guys, working in the film industry, as Matt and I can tell you most of the time, is no fucking fun at all.
No, it's no fun. You're often put in the worst circumstances possible, and then asked to deliver, something really great. And sometimes everyone does their best, but sometimes your best is not good enough.
All right, let's get back on the Shadow. So one of the things I like about this film, and I think it does it more successfully than the Phantom, so it puts it above the Phantom for me straight away, is it captures the look and the feel and the palette of what I think a comic film should look like.
Yeah, it really does.
And the era too. It's got that wonderful kind of 1940s era, just in terms of the way the women are photographed, for example. You can see in this shot here, Ian McKellen as the scientist.
Yeah. I think one thing that all three films have that they really share, apart from the fact that they all look good and have beautiful photography and great production design, is all the women in these films are gorgeous.
Yeah.
All of them are gorgeous in these three films. So Penelope Ann Miller looks amazing in all of those stunning dresses from the 40s. So there's a lot to like about these films aesthetically, I think.
Now, I wasn't...
Even the Phantom.
I'd be interested in what's your opinion of Alec Baldwin in this role?
I didn't really care too much for him when I first saw it.
Yeah.
But over the years, as I've watched the Phantom, I've actually really grown to like his performance and what he's doing with it. So, he's grown on me. But it took a few years,
because when I hadn't seen it for a very long time, and it's very over-egged.
Yeah.
It's very, yes, I talk like this.
Yeah.
So, have you worked out the plan yet? And there's kind of a lot of that.
Yeah. There's also again a bit like the Phantom. The script is a bit cheeky and having fun, and it's got its tongue. It's got its tongue in its cheek, and it's winking at the audience a few times as well.
Always best to have the tongue in the cheek and nowhere else. So, yeah, I mean, I was kind of waiting for him to go, I have a feeling Captain Ramius is going to defect. I was just waiting for him to say that line, but as the Shadow, obviously. But he didn't. So
No.
It's come Fred October. Yeah, I kind of liked him in the role.
He was okay. I'd say he was okay.
Sometimes
like Billy Zane, he was okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was decent enough.
He looks the part. He looks good.
Yeah, he's got the nose.
But I guess the problem with
Broger gives it a 6.5.
It's
already coming in with the scores. Guys, hold off on the scores for the moment.
Tonally though, the Shadow, it works really well sometimes, and sometimes it goes a little off kilter. The tone is sometimes a little campy, and then other times it feels a bit more serious, and then it goes very campy again. And
I found that shifting of tone a bit irritating.
Yeah. Well, the tone of the Phantom is all over the place. Like, it's just completely going. It's like a vehicle that's careening out of control. This one is more steady with the occasional sort of back on track. Okay, back on track. So it doesn't derail it for me. But yeah,
Jim D says he's great when he's running around with the two nickel-plated 45s. I agree, and I kind of wanted to see a bit more 45.
A bit more. I reckon the Shadow needs one more action scene in it.
Yeah,
and
that was missing.
I think the look of the character is interesting. He looks almost a bit like a cowboy with his very wide rimmed fedora. He's got the red handkerchief over his face and the two pistols. There is something a bit cowboy about it.
Yeah,
which is a bit odd.
There you go.
Yeah,
very cowboy in that shot.
It's very cowboy. So he's an interesting. I always felt like maybe the fedora should have been a little more narrow to fit the era, but again, they're being very faithful to the comic. To the comic.
Yeah.
So, but those nickel-plated guns, they did look very, very cool.
David Macy's asking how was Tim Curry in it. I mean, over the top and batshit crazy like he always is.
He's pretty funny, actually. He does. He gets some of the best laughs in the movie. He delivers. He's a bit of a sleazeball. Bit of a sleazy goofball in it. He's not in it very much, unfortunately.
No,
but he is. When he pops up, he's funny and he's good.
Grogu's right. He does look like Darkman.
Darkman and the Shadow. I think they're both kind of heroes that are a little bit. I don't know. There's a bit of an edge to them, and that's probably why Raimi and Darkman feel. They feel the same.
It's the late great Peter Boyle there.
I really like what I like about the Shadow, as say opposed to the Phantom, is the Shadow himself as a hero. He actually starts as a monster. He starts as an evil man who's becoming good, and I think, and when he becomes the Shadow, there is a sense of villainy to him. Like he has that cackle, and he kills people, and he's not. There is something a bit dark-edged about the Shadow, and for me, and even though I didn't quite get the tone right, that's kind of what I like about the Shadow as a character.
Yeah, they didn't play that as well as they could have.
No, but it's there.
Yeah.
But it is there, and I think I actually really would love to see the Shadow character revisited again, as I think the Phantom should be revisited again, and
less purple.
And get this Shadow character right, because I think he's an interesting hero because he is a little bit dark and dangerous and a bit evil. I mean, most superheroes don't start evil and become a good hero, do they? Most of them start as an ordinary person and they're called to adventure.
Bad shit happens to them and then they become a superhero.
Yeah, but those of you if you haven't seen the Shadow, he actually starts as a completely evil man who is almost forced against his will to become good.
Right.
For his own sort of soul's redemption or something. It's again, the beginning's a little bit. They didn't handle the beginning quite well.
The two weakest things for me in the movie were the beginning. There's a massive exposition jump. We've got a lot of information in scrolling titles.
Yeah.
Then we've got a really long flashback. Then more titles with information. And I was thinking, couldn't all of this been told in one line? But I guess it's kind of nice that we see he was a bad man and was kind of.
But that perhaps would have been better told later in the story.
As a flash, I felt that could have come back as a flashback later. We kind of
keep him mysterious.
Yeah. And the fact that we kind of knew who he was from the get-go made him less mysterious, and that was one of the problems I had with the film.
And I totally agree with that. And I think if they are going to redo it, they should actually keep the character more mysterious and let us reveal his inner darkness. Because I actually think the inner darkness thing really works well, because he gets tempted by the Shiwan Khan to join him and come back and be evil again.
Yeah, the second issue I actually had with the film was the bad guy. Now, I like this actor. I think he's very good. He's actually quite good in this film. I just didn't find this guy running around New York in his samurai armor. No one seems to notice him. I know he can bewitch people, and obviously he hides a whole building and all that kind of thing. But those scenes didn't really work for me. He's running around in his samurai armor. No one's kind of really taking any notice. It's not like we've coincided the story to take place with Halloween. So I just sort of, those bits kind of, I would go, oh, really? And that was sort of, because I'm thinking that now I'm out of the story, kind of liked this weird little evil dagger.
I like, that little evil dagger was kind of fun. I remember him being quite effective when I saw it in the cinema for the first time. He comes across as quite evil. I think that's what I liked about the film. There was a supernatural element to it, because it is about mind control. It's about using your mind to manipulate people and to make them see things or hide things. And there is actually supernatural in this story. There is this sense of, great evil and mind control. And I actually, in Dick Tracy, the Rocketeer, and to a certain extent, the Phantom, there's not a lot of supernatural in those, but this one is heavily supernatural.
So Clueless hated that dagger. Jim has said, "Oh, that knife," which I'm guessing might mean the same thing.
That knife. That's a quote from the movie.
Oh, yeah,
when he stabs it and he goes, "Oh, that knife."
Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Those people who are Star Trek Voyager fans may like to know that Ethan Phillips, who plays Neelix, has a really tiny role in the film. He's one of the security guards in the museum prison.
Yeah,
I have met Ethan. He's a very, very nice man, and
it's quite funny. And in that little role in the Phantom, just that little tiny part that he has, he's actually quite interesting and funny.
There's definitely a lot of influences from Big Trouble in Little China, particularly with the sets. James Hong is still alive.
Wow,
I thought he'd passed away. He's still alive, and doesn't he play Lo Pan? Isn't that the actor that plays Lo Pan in Big Trouble?
I think so.
James Hong. Pretty sure
yeah. I mean, he's in so many things in that time period.
Yeah, David Lo Pan.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I could have sworn James Hong passed away. Well, anyway, I love James Hong. He's a fantastic actor. He's pretty good in this as well. Tim Curry, as we said, he's good.
Decent. Peter Boyle's nice as the chauffeur of the Shadow. He's kind of funny.
Yeah, Ian McKellen doesn't get to do very much in the film. Mainly kind of stand by scientific things, and then he gets taken over and he prods at more scientific things.
Yeah.
Penelope Ann Miller, I think, she's got a good role.
Yep.
So she's a strong female character.
She is, and she's sort of spunky and beautiful, and she's got she's got a marvelous voice. I don't know what it is about Penelope Ann Miller. She's got such a cute voice. There's a couple of scenes it's a little hammy, the performance, but I think it's some of the lines she's given don't work too well. But
the script is hit and miss.
Yeah. Which is interesting because it was written by David Koepp, and David Koepp, that's a great shot. I love that shot. Yeah, David Koepp wrote Jurassic Park, and he's written a lot, David Koepp. So I guess, maybe his screenplay worked better than maybe the whole movie ended up. But what's interesting about The Shadow is it's very hard to find out behind the scenes information about the movie, how it all went. There's not a lot about it. But I do think, for me, the two best things about this movie is its overall look and its music. The music is worth just watching this film for the music alone is worth it. I think it's one of the best superhero film scores.
It definitely, for me, it was very close in terms of tone and the look, very close to Tim Burton's first Batman film.
Yes, very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
But I think it has enough of its own personality. But it is very much following that Danny Elfman dark, which is clearly what they were going for with the success of Batman only a few years before. But I personally I actually much prefer Jerry Goldsmith's Shadow score to anything that Danny Elfman's done for Batman or Spider-Man. I think this is one of the best scores
It
out there.
It is a good Jerry Goldsmith score. So, people, give your score for The Shadow out of 10 on IMDb. I think for me, it's somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7. It tries very hard. It nearly succeeds, but doesn't quite succeed. There are some issues with the plot here and there. It's a little bit messy.
Yep.
The beginning I would have much preferred came later in the movie. The more mysterious the Shadow is, the better. Why tell us everything about him in the first 10 minutes? Now you've kind of killed the mystery. And in fact, I think really that the narrator of the story should not have been the Shadow. It should have been somebody like Penelope Ann Miller in that kind of almost like that investigative reporter. Who is this guy? Where does he come from? And gradually she gets close to him, and then she finds out something along those lines.
Yeah. Although that sort of was that probably would have treaded a little bit too close to Highlander for Russell's thing. I'm gonna go with a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a 7. So Clueless is giving it a 6. So this film is already soaring ahead.
It is
of The Phantom.
There is really a lot to like about this film. It's not perfect. There are a lot of things it could have done better, but there's so much to like about it.
From Clueless, Big Jim, 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Great film, which I've seen many times over. The score is fantastic.
Yeah.
I agree with you on all these things. Yes. Production design is really good. The miniature city is very impactful.
Yeah, because it was very early in the CGI days. Yeah. I had to have watched it, Jim D. I have watched this film countless times. I don't know how many times I've watched The Shadow, and I saw it 2 days ago, and I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I've listened to that soundtrack probably almost as much as I've listened to the Blade Runner soundtrack. The first 2 soundtracks I owned on CD was Blade Runner and The Shadow, and I have thrashed them, and I still will, and I will thrash them for decades to come.
Fantastic. Okay, well, no more marks coming up in the chat, so we're going to move on then.
Now we're going to move on to
the third and final choice.
Third and final of the Pulp 1940s, 1990s produced superhero films.
So
The Rocketeer.
Little story, and I've been interested to know if anybody can name the other film. So I went to, I guess it was Universal Studios, I think, for the second time around 1991 on a holiday. And I was supposed to go with someone else, and I broke up from that person, so I ended up going on my own, which was a bit shite. But anyway, I went around one of the theme parks, and at the end of one of the rides at the theme parks, they had this thing, hey, it's time to watch the trailers. And you got to see a couple of trailers, and I saw 2 trailers, one of which was for The Rocketeer. And it's that very fast, punchy trailer where the logo, the letters from the word The Rocketeer are going, joo, 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 like that.
It was a great trailer.
Great trailer. And it ends with this shot, that trailer.
Yeah.
Which is an iconic recreation of a cover for, I think, like a cartoon strip or a book or something.
It's the Rocketeer graphic novel.
That's it.
Yeah, and written by David someone. But
great writer Dave. We do like him.
But it's and it was actually from that. It was written in the 80s. But the interesting. We'll come back to the graphic novel later. But
okay.
An excellent.
Based on the comic book by Dave Stevens.
I knew it was Dave something.
Yeah.
So
set in 1938, Los Angeles. That's always kind of a nice time to set a film, because World War I is just on the boil.
World War II is on the boil.
Sorry, yeah. World War II. Yeah. My brain. We're tired. We've been at this all week. World War II is on the boil. There's Nazis around. America's not involved in a war yet, but there's a lot of tension everywhere politically, and there's a lot of emerging political groups.
Yeah.
So setting anything in that era is always quite interesting.
Yes.
Because you got a lot of different villains to choose from. One actor who was attached to do a film of mine is actually in The Rocketeer, and very sadly, he passed away last year.
Who's that?
Do you know who that was? Paul Sorvino.
Sorvino.
So
he's great in this film.
Yeah,
he'd just done Goodfellas.
He had,
and when he did, and then he played another gangster in The Rocketeer.
And talking of those who've passed away, Alan Arkin is also fantastic in this movie.
Alan Arkin is one of my favorite characters in fact, this is the first film I ever saw Alan Arkin in, and I love him. He's so good as PB.
Now this film flopped, but it's difficult.
I don't think it was a crash flop. I think it was a bit of a limp. It was a bit of a. It was. Yeah, but it didn't quite hit the heights that they were aiming for.
Yeah, probably. I imagine it probably did well on VHS. Now I remember at the time, a lot of the blame for that landed on the shoulders of Billy Campbell.
Billy Campbell, yeah,
totally unjustified. He's really good in the role.
He is.
He's not a bad actor. He looks the part.
Absolutely.
I think that was a bit of scapegoating going on.
Absolutely, it was scapegoating. I actually think he's really good.
Yeah,
I think he's actually a very, very good, and he looks remarkably like the guy from the comic.
Yeah,
from the graphic novel. He is. He looks like someone drew Billy Campbell. As a comic book person.
Yeah.
I think he's actually an excellent actor. I think he was excellently cast. And what's good about him is that he is a bit of a goofball. He is a bit of a clumsy pilot who isn't very good at being being a boyfriend, and he's a bit. There's something a bit klutzy about him, and the fact that he suddenly has to be thrown into being this hero that I think that really works.
Yeah, I agree. There's the late great Paul Sorvino. Now, do you recognise the person standing to his left?
Yes, he was in the movie we watched the other day from Midnight Run.
He is. He's one of the gangsters.
He's always
playing Midnight Run.
Always playing heavies. In Sister Act 1, he was also the heavy of the henchman of Harvey Keitel in Sister Act 1. So in this period, he was constantly turning up as a heavy.
Well, he's got the hat. So great costumes. I wonder if this was Marilyn Vance Straker who did the costumes for Rocketeer. We'll have a
no, I don't think it was her actually.
Now this is another actor I love, Terry O'Quinn.
He's great.
He's great in this.
He shows up in a lot of films in this period. And he's playing Howard Hughes in this movie, the aviator Howard Hughes that Leonardo DiCaprio played.
Tim Dalton's very good in this film.
Tim Dalton is fantastic. He's the ultimate villain, really, isn't he? You've got secondary sub-villains.
Yeah.
And actually, it follows the Indiana Jones thing. Like in every Indiana Jones film, and we're not including 4 or 5, those films can fuck off.
Yeah.
We're talking about the only true proper Indiana Jones films. They all always have 3 villains. You have the psychopathic villain, more of a bit of a smart villain, and then you have the muscle villain.
The muscle villain, yeah.
And this film has all that. You've got Paul Sorvino, who's like the tough villain. You've got Timothy Dalton is the psychopathic villain, and then you've got the muscle villain, who's that great big guy that looks like he's got that face, all that great big face.
Yeah.
You know, that big guy
who looks like he should have been in a Dick Tracy film.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah,
he looked like he wandered off the Dick Tracy set. I forget Luther, his name is.
Yeah.
Or Lothar. And so it very much follows the Indiana Jones formula. And I think to great effect.
Tell us how you really feel, Matthew. I think that's about Indiana 4 and 5. That's how we both feel, by the way.
That's how we both feel.
I don't work for no 2-bit Nazis. I remember that line. Yeah. I thought that was very good.
Oh, and having the how satisfying was it when the gangsters turn and join the FBI to fight the Nazis,
and they're
both shooting the Tommy guns. And they smile at each other.
Yeah, that was really good. In fact, that whole end action sequence with the Zeppelin and there's a whole load of German like paratroops on it.
Yeah,
with really cool but kind of correct costumes.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I really loved that. So Clueless here saying Tim Dalton was really great. Pleasantly surprised when I found he was in Flash Gordon as well. This was Dalton's big job after he did Bond. He did the 2 Bond films. He was waiting for the rights issue to be resolved. That's why the 3rd one wasn't made. And then in the end, he was like, well, I can't hang around any longer. And he took this job. And it was great because we were used to seeing him as a hero. He was kind of a hero in Flash Gordon. Here he plays a dastardly sort of suave villain, and he's having the time of his life.
Yeah, he's basically playing he's playing an Errol Flynn, old Hollywood star who's actually a Nazi undercover, and it's he does it really, really well. Now, you know what's interesting?
The music.
Oh, we're going to get to the music.
We'll get
Thomas, we're coming to the music. Going back to the Indiana Jones DNA that's in the Rocketeer, this film is directed by Joe Johnston, who started out as a Lucas, as an
effects guy,
an industrial light and magic
guy,
effects guy.
Yeah.
And Joe Johnston did heaps of the effects. He did heaps of the effects work in the original Star Wars trilogy, and I believe effects work in some of the early Indiana Jones films as well. And as the story goes, he was working for George Lucas at Industrial Light and Magic, but really wanted to get into directing. And Lucas said to him, you know, what do you want to do? And with your career? And he said, I really want to get into directing. And Lucas actually said, well, I think that's a great idea. And Lucas paid for him to go to film school.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I saw that in the documentary.
So we have, I mean, there's many things we can thank George Lucas for. The prequels are not one of them. But we can thank George Lucas for really setting up the career of Joe Johnston, because Joe Johnston would go on to give us the first Captain America, and he did Jurassic Park 3, though that wasn't all that great. But he did October Sky. That was a really good film.
That's a good film.
October Sky.
A really good film.
And look, I think Joe Johnston is a really solid director. He's like he's a bit like Ron Howard, like a good workman director.
Yeah,
Just makes solid movies.
Yeah.
I think this is his best, though.
Yeah.
I think this is Joe Johnston's best film. But he's clearly come from the Spielberg Lucas world, and that's where his training was. And you can see he's brought all that to the Rocketeer.
Yeah, I mean, he did the Page Master.
But he won the visual effects for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
So he's a visual effects guy.
He did Hidalgo with Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, he's a really solid director.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Just a bit of background on the production itself. So again, had a long road to get made. The development started back in 1983.
Yeah.
So that's eight years from development to screen.
Yeah.
And Steve Miner and William Deere considered directing before Johnston signed on. Now, Matt got, by the way, guys,
I'm so glad William Deere didn't direct it. So glad.
Well, it's my birthday today, chat, by the way. So if you want to wish me happy birthday or send gifts, please do. But Matt bought me a birthday present today, which I think is behind here. I think I put it up here.
You haven't thrown it away already, have you?
I haven't. No. Which is House.
Yes, House.
I didn't actually check to see if the original poster, which is way better than the one that's on the cover right now, is behind. Is a reversible cover, you know, with a better poster. So I'm going to have a quick look. But
I don't know if
I think House was directed by Steve Miner.
Oh, there you
go.
Who
was one of the people that was considered for,
the director of House.
Yeah, let's. House was a cool little horror film that was low budget, kind of made in the 80s. Several sequels came out. I've always kind of wanted to own a copy. Matt just got me a copy of it on Blu-ray today. And we won't talk about it now, but I probably will do a stream about the House movies. It has. Look at that.
You get the real cover.
It has got the proper cover. This is so much of a much better
that's
poster.
Good, because I know that was the one thing that you were a bit bummed about, is that you didn't get the proper poster.
Yeah,
on the cover.
I used to have this poster on my wall in my bedroom because I just thought it was such a cool.
That's the one I remember from working in the video store.
That's such a cool poster. The hand, pressing the doorbell.
Yeah.
Don't come alone. I really like it. The first 45 minutes to an hour of this movie is really good, and then I kind of remember once they kind of reveal what's going on, it sort of just loses it. But I've always wanted to have it. Thanks, man. It does have the cover. Win-win.
Yeah.
Win-win. Winner. Chicken dinner. Okay, so a bit of a long road, and Steve Miner, who did direct House, it's interesting. I don't think it would have particularly aided his career if he had done it. So screenplay by Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo. So Danny Bilson is the original writer of the comic. Is that right?
No, that's Dave Stevens.
Dave Stevens. Yeah, Dave Stevens was the comic book artist.
Yeah, so they obviously had the job of adapting it. Now, this is the interesting thing. This is what I want to talk about, the graphic novel. I own the graphic novel.
Right.
And it is very different. The only thing that is the same between the movie and the graphic novel is really just the setup, who the characters are and who they become. But Jenny in the story is not an actress. She's not an aspiring actress in Hollywood. In the graphic novel, she's actually a pinup girl who does nudie shots like Betty Page.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's a picture of her here. In fact, we'll pop that up.
And I remember my boss at work when I used to tell him how much I liked The Shadow, he would always say, but they got it wrong. They should have put Jennifer Connelly in the stuff that she was wearing in the comic book, in the graphic novel, because she was a nudie pinup girl. And
I'm sure many people would have been deeply upset to see Jennifer Connelly wearing such items.
And that's probably why they decided to keep her clothes on and make her a respectable, aspiring actress instead of a nudie pinup girl. Because who wants to see Jennifer Connelly as a nudie pinup girl? Who wants that?
Well, I can't think of anyone who would. Did you see that Dave Stevens died quite young?
He did die very young.
It's rare leukemia at the age of 52 in 2008. How sad!
It was very sad, very sad. But it's a very different plot, and I would actually say, and don't crucify me, those that I actually think the movie is better than the graphic novel. I think the graphic novel is just not as strong a story.
That's interesting.
I think they really worked out an excellent story for the Rocketeer.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Clueless. I thank George for the prequels. They're nowhere near as good, but they were at least Star Wars. Yeah, I get where you're going with that point.
Well, in the light of the sequel trilogy from
they look like masterpieces,
but
in relation to those.
I'm still never going to forgive George personally for what he did with those prequels, but that's me.
Yeah, the scripts were lacking a little bit.
They were shockingly. He should have been an EP co-writer. That's what he should have been. He should have given the directing reins to somebody else and worked behind the scenes like he did on Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back.
Jim D, a fan of the score, not Horner's best. Wrath of Khan is magnificent. Jim D, did you know I have Wrath of Khan right down here?
Let's talk about the music, because Thomas says he loves the music. I actually think this is one of my favorite scores of James Horner's.
Yeah, Cocoon is probably my favorite James Horner score.
I mean, look, we've got Titanic, Braveheart, Willow, any number of fantastic scores, but for me, the Rocketeer, that opening track with the piano, I love the Rocketeer score, and like The Shadow, I have thrashed it. I absolutely love it. And for those who love it, make sure you get the there's a 2-disc edition that has all the all the bells and whistles. All the bells and whistles from Intrada Records, I think. So get that.
2-disc.
It is one of the best of Horner's scores, in my opinion.
I like that costume.
Yeah, and that's straight from the graphic novel.
Yeah, it looked identical. Some of the effects work in this film doesn't hold up great today.
Look, it's not terrible though. It's a little ropey, but it's not terrible.
It's not Superman 4, but it's
But here's an interesting thing. Did you know that when he's flying around being the Rocketeer? That's actually stop motion, go motion.
Right.
They built a little rocket man about this big.
Yeah, with the miniature and he
was actually stop motion animated.
Yeah.
To do all those flying sequences like that,
right?
Because that was pre CGI.
Yeah.
And I actually think once you know that that's how he was done, it's actually they did a really good job, because animating a human is a very hard thing, because our eyes can pick a fake human.
Yeah.
But a dinosaur or a tauntaun or something, we can accept that. But the fact that he's got a big helmet on helps. But that's how they did it. Stop motion animation.
I do like the Rocketeer's helmet. Maybe I should rephrase that. It sounds a bit dodgy. This artwork is fantastic. It's got that kind of that retro sort of 1940s,
that sort of Art Deco design.
Art Deco, and like one of the best bits of the film is when you see the plans that the Nazis have for the rocket pack, and they've got their kind of like promotional propaganda film. It shows their Supermen, and that's so like one of their films. You could really believe
the music. Yeah. I think the helmet of the Rocketeer, that is one film prop that if I ever see it for sale, if you like a replica, I want to get it. If I could blow a lot of money on a piece of movie paraphernalia, it would be a really marvelous Rocketeer helmet.
What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to wear it for special occasions. Just the helmet.
Okay. Well, Nadia, if you're listening, you know, look forward to those.
Look forward to those occasions.
Yeah.
So,
here we are.
But again, like the other two films, stunning production. But you know what's different about The Rocketeer to the other two is I think this film's tone is bang on the whole way.
Well, this film, to me, it's also to do with the way that it's lit and the way that it's shot. Feels like it's set in the real world.
Yes, absolutely. There's no hyper reality.
No, it's not set in Los Angeles over there. It's set in Los Angeles that I know. I mean, even though it's a different era, obviously, to when I was brought up and also when I lived there.
But it's the pre-war era of of Los Angeles.
But it feels like that. It feels like we are in that era. Not a fantastical version of that era,
and they're playing it straight in most of the time. The actors, they're playing it straight. The villains are being villains and the good guys are being good. And it's not winking at the audience.
And Jennifer Connelly and Billy Campbell fell in love, didn't they, during the filming of this?
They did. They were dating for a few years after that.
They were dating.
Lucky SOB, Billy Campbell.
I mean, yeah.
And we haven't even talked about Jennifer Connelly.
Let's talk about. I thought we talked about Jennifer Connelly's underwear for about 10 minutes, didn't we?
We talked about the character in the comic books underwear.
Okay.
And how we wanted to see Jennifer in it. But
all right, let's talk about Jennifer Connelly's underwear then.
I think the best thing about this film is Jennifer Connelly.
She is very good in this. She's got that classic 1940s red lipstick, dark, dusky brunette.
Amazing. This is the film. For me in 1992, when I saw this film,
you knew you were going to marry Nadia when you.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I watched,
Matt's wife looks like Jennifer Connelly. For those people watching,
who would have thought? But I think for me, seeing Jennifer Connelly in this movie in 1992, this is when I was like, oh yeah, I'm heterosexual. Yeah.
Until then, he wasn't sure.
Until then, I wasn't sure. But when I saw Jennifer Connelly, I was like, "Yeah, I'm definitely heterosexual."
Yeah, he was getting some stirrings over Alan Arkin, but then fortunately, Jennifer Connelly
she turns up, and the whole boat turned around.
Yeah, the whole Arkin fantasy just vanished in smoke.
So I think she is possibly one of the most beautiful screen characters. And
she's beautiful in this film. I will agree.
I think she's one of the most stunning things about this movie.
This was probably her biggest lead after Labyrinth.
It was. Yeah.
Labyrinth was 86.
She'd done some comedies and dramas.
She did some bits and pieces, but this was like her first big Hollywood lead. Yeah, I think
it was. And she plays innocent, beautiful, strong, vulnerable, and just downright gorgeous and beautiful outfits.
There she is again.
This is, I think,
this is funny. It's like, hey, look, there's Jennifer Connelly. Yeah. It's like cut to reverse. Hey, yeah, I see what you're looking at, Cliff.
Yeah. Look, I'm sure I speak for many men when we say that she's my biggest screen crush ever.
Melvin has never watched The Rocketeer.
Melvin,
we recommend.
Melvin, get The Rocketeer because it's so damn good and it's got Jennifer Connelly in it.
There you go.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah, you want to get deeply into Jennifer Connelly, Melvin, because that's your name. So get on that. It is a good film. I knew it was another film when I watched it. I thought it wasn't like, okay, I've got to have this, like The Untouchables was like, but damn, as soon as this comes out, I'm buying a copy. But The Rocketeer was like, yeah, I'd like that in my collection. That's definitely got rewatch value.
Yeah.
I probably don't watch it every year, but it's one of those ones that I do enjoy. I can put it on and. I've found sometimes I'd put it on, I'd get distracted by something, I'd come back and I'd always try and get back for the airship bit.
I missed this at the cinema. I wasn't allowed to go to the cinema very often in this time of my life, and I missed it. But I saw it on VHS, and as kids, we watched this on loop. We watched it all the damn time. So for me, I don't know how many times I've seen this film, but one of the things that I want people to watch, if you have seen it before or you haven't seen it, like Melvin is going to do, he's going to watch it.
I'll get on board. Oh, matron.
What is so fantastic about The Rocketeer is how well directed and crafted it is.
It is.
Because it has all these scenes that when it transitions from one scene to the next very cleverly. They'll use a wipe, or they'll use a sound cue, or they'll use a like, remember when that gun comes up into the roof and it's going to shoot PB?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it cuts to someone taking a photograph. Almost like the gun went off.
Yeah. That's really good.
It has all these really, really clever scene transitions. So you can tell that it's been directed with a lot of care. And I think that care is all the way through it.
Am I right in thinking this Tiny Ron guy is the same actor who was in part 2 of The Godfather, and he goes down to put a cushion over the guy that's trying to take them out? They're trying to take him out. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
But I think
I don't know who this guy.
Tiny Ron, is he still alive? Let's have
I don't know.
No, he died in 2019. I'm guessing he wasn't.
He had a lot of prosthetic makeup put on. He looked indistinguishable in this film.
27 credits. I remember the episode of Deep Space Nine he was in. Played 3 characters. Is it? No, it's not him because he wasn't in. No, okay, all right. Well, we'll table that topic then. Yeah, Tiny Ron. Okay, interesting character in it. There's Terry O'Quinn again. And here we are with the
great use of miniatures and optical effects. It's really one of the. This is just before digital really took off with Jurassic Park in '93.
Yeah.
So it's almost one of the last remnants of an era where things were optical.
Yeah.
So it's one of the best. I think it's sort of almost like this is the peak of. Like Terminator 2, this was the peak of Terminator 2 kind of clicked over the digital world.
Yeah, although with particular effects, and then of course it was taken much bigger and grander down the road. Thomas Barholi saying, I feel like it's Howard Hughes combined with Captain America with a Hollywood twist of flavor. That's a pretty good.
Yeah, considering they got Joe Johnson to direct Captain America.
Yeah. I don't know why I never watched it. I remember wanting to see it when it first came out, and I thought it was going to be an updated version of King of the Rocket Men, that Saturday serial. I remember King of the Rocket Men, mate. I remember that.
Definitely see it. You have missed. I envy you. You get to watch this film for the first time. It is a beautiful film. It is a very entertaining film.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I can't sing its praises enough. I have one criticism of The Rocketeer.
Go for it.
It lacks one more action scene. We needed just one more action scene with him flying around with his rocket.
Yeah, with him actually kind of having got to grips with the rocket pack,
yes,
doing something cool with it.
Yeah,
maybe taking out not a mini Zeppelin, but something preceding the Zeppelin scene.
He just needed one more scene with him using the rocket.
Yeah, taking out a couple of villains on a roof or something like that, rescuing Connolly from a roof or something. Yeah. I think it could.
And the film, it's a very tight, sort of just under 2 hours, I think. And I feel like this film had the quality and the story, because it's actually a very complicated sort of plot, to get the MacGuffin.
Look at this guy.
And
Nazi of the week.
Yes,
Heinrich James.
But I think it just needed that one more action scene just to fill it out, because when it ends you're kind of like, oh, is that it? Damn it, I wanted more. And that's it. I mean, it's a sign of a good film, you want more. But that's my only criticism of The Rocketeer.
So people in chat, vote now. What are you going to give this out of 10? What are you going to give this out of 10? I've already rated this an 8 out of 10 for me. I feel like I probably would have rated it an 8.5 if I could do an 8.5. It's not quite there for a 9 for me. Score's excellent, acting's excellent, production design is excellent. You're right, it is missing one action scene.
Yeah. Just needs an extra 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all it needs, just a little bit more.
Jim D's giving it a 9 out of 10. Great example of a family film. I agree with you, mate. Great villains, great heroes, and a solid story.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I'm going to give The Rocketeer 9.5.
Oh,
and the only reason it loses a 0.5 is because it lacks that extra action scene. Other than that, I think this is the perfect comic pulp movie.
Yeah, of the 3, I think it's leagues above the other 2.
Leagues above. But for this genre, the pulpy comic book film of a 40s adaptation thing, I don't think you can get better than The Rocketeer. I think this is up there with Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones movies. I think it's almost pure cinema perfection. I love it.
Great. Jim D saying they really don't make them like this anymore. You're right, Jim. They don't.
But don't worry, because
they remake them like this.
Disney still has the rights to the character, and last I heard, they are making a new Rocketeer series, and they're going to butcher it all up.
Oh,
they're going to completely butcher it all up.
Great. Can't wait to see that. Well, okay, so that nearly brings us to the end. We're just gonna talk about a couple of things we've got coming up. So Matt and I have several streams planned for the future. He'll be on a bit of a sabbatical while he's yomping around Scotland and Ireland and all those kinds of fun places. But we are going to do, for example, on Thursday, don't forget, as I've already told you, we have our retrospective and review and discussion coming up about two very different gangster films. But both big in their own way, both got their legion of fans. So we'll be talking about Rise of the Foot Soldier and The Long Good Friday. Matt has just watched both of those in the last couple of days. Then when Matt comes back from his travels and is landed firmly on Terra Aussie Firma, we will also, at some point, we haven't set a date for it yet, but we're going to be doing the two Judge Dredd films.
Yep.
So we will be talking about
Dredd versus Dredd.
Dredd versus Dredd. Now, I was on the set of the Stallone Dredd, so I've got some stories from that. There is still talk of a Dredd television series. We know Carl Urban is interested. I would love to see Carl Urban return in that role.
As would I.
So when we do that stream, we'll try and get the most up-to-date information we can on where they are in the works with that show. We are also going to do the films of Michael Mann, which I think we've got a poster for as well, if I can find it.
You do have a poster for the films of Michael Mann. A great filmmaker, and certainly with a huge resume of things. So
maybe I didn't download that one.
I don't think you've downloaded it yet.
I don't think
but I have sent it. So
Matt's been super efficient, slaving away in my kitchen, doing these things. I think that is that. Yeah.
David Macy, what is he saying? He preferred Rocketeer to the other two so much. So I have ordered the DVD on eBay. David, don't order the DVD. Order the Blu-ray.
Maybe he hasn't got a Blu-ray.
Get it on Blu-ray. It's worthy of the Blu-ray purchase if you own a Blu-ray.
Yeah, I mean, if he owns a Blu-ray,
but it was.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a whole sort of like favorite directors season. We're going to do Ray Harryhausen.
Mm-hmm. The creatures of
we're going to do the creatures of Ray Harryhausen, just to make it a little bit different. So it's not just another Ray Harry. But we are also going to do the first of our favorite directors is going to be about Michael Mann. So I think we'll be looking at. I think we set a date for this one. Just the one the Tuesday in August when you come back. I think it might be the 22nd.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we might have set a date for this one. 22nd of August might be this or that. That might be Dredd. I forget which. But one of them is already updated on the channel, so you can see we're going to be talking about that. And I'm also compiling a top 5 of the best true story dramas, British. Top 5 miniseries true story dramas, British. They're coming your way pretty soon. We're going to do top 5 American true story dramas, top 5 American true story miniseries. 5 episodes or less. So we won't be including things like Band of Brothers, which is technically a true story miniseries, but no, it's not really a miniseries. It's a series.
Oh, yeah.
I would argue it's a series.
Limited series. Yeah.
Desert Phoenix is asking me, when's the next Lone Wolf reading? Well, it's funny you should say that, mate, because actually I was going to do some of those originally this week, but then I didn't want to do stuff that I wouldn't normally do with Matt, even though he could have helped me choose the adventure routes, which would have been quite interesting. But I will be doing those. I think I'm going to be relaunching those on Wednesdays, probably starting next week, actually. Certainly before the end of the month, I'll be doing my next Lone Wolf read through. For those people watching, may not be of interest to you. It's a choose your own adventure book. They're on the shelf behind me there. But I let the people in chat help me make the choices. Sometimes I have a guest on who helps me make the choices. Jim D says always 4K It can be very subjective when it comes to audio-visual quality, and often not worth paying the extra £10. Blu-ray's it for me. I'm not scaling up any higher.
I'm probably going to buy a 4K player, but I'm not replacing my titles with 4K. I might buy some 4K from now on.
Sure,
but I'm not going to replace my titles.
No, I mean, how many different formats can we have? I've already thrown out, like 2,000 VHSs.
Yeah, I did the same, and I got rid of a whole bunch of DVDs. I'm not doing that again. I mean, look, I think Blu-ray is a perfectly wonderful, beautiful looking format. Our eyes can't see much more detail than that anyway. So
Indeed.
Next, when they bring out 8K, that's just someone having a laugh, I reckon.
So listen, we're getting a small but dedicated core audience every time we come on now. Much appreciated.
It's great to see all the familiar names, and we love hearing your feedback live as we talk. It gives us gives us things to banter off.
So we're coming back probably about 11:30. It might be slightly earlier, but probably 11:30 to do our final stream with Matt here in the studio. I don't normally do them on Thursdays because that slightly clashes with Critical Drinkers Open Bar. He will start that a lot earlier, so he may be winding up by the time we're starting. But we'll probably be on for about an hour, not too late because Matt's got to get up the next day. I've got to take him to Waterloo Station. But So Clueless has just said Rocketeer 8 out of 10. Yeah, I think
he's clearly not clueless.
He's not. No.
If you're giving it an 8 out of 10, you're not clueless.
No one's given Rocketeer less than an 8, so the Rocketeer is the clear winner.
Absolutely.
Of the three.
Rocketeer is a clear winner. Shadow is a bit of middle range, and the poor Phantom is lying in the dust.
Yeah, there's things you can enjoy about the Shadow. I don't think today's audience are going to be as forgiving as we might be.
No, I don't think so. And I think of all these films, I would say the Phantom absolutely needs a remake. I think the Shadow would be interesting as a remake, but Rocketeer is to be left alone. No one is to remake the Rocketeer.
Don't touch
the
Rocketeer. So. All right. Okay. Well, listen, guys. Thanks ever so much for tuning in. Do share the streams. Check out the other content because remember, it's all about watch hours now for us to get monetized. I think we're about 100 watch hours away from being monetized. I'll be able to get a better light when I sort that out, so I don't look so pale and peachy.
Might even be able to get a even better little camera.
Maybe, yeah. Now we've upscaled it though. It's been
we can still. Yeah, these cameras are a little average.
They're a little average.
Little average.
Matt's gonna help me pick out a new camera. Actually, I might do that. I might pick out and order a new camera before you go. All right. So thanks, guys. I hope you learned a few tidbits about these three films tonight. We will be seeing you again on Thursday around 11:30. Won't be too precise on the time, but keep an eye on it. We should do a review of MILF Manor. I'm not too sure if I'm going to be checking out something called MILF Manor.
MILF Manor.
The title is already putting me off.
Okay. I'm going to go look up MILF Manor. I'll be back.
All right. And we'll see you soon, guys. Take it easy. And remember what I always say. If there's a friend or family relative that you haven't spoken to for a while, pick up the phone and give them a ring and let them know that you care about them. And I'll speak to you all again real soon. And thank you for that, Melvin. If you can get us 100 hours in a day, that'd be great. Just go and watch the feature film, The Journey, shot in Greece over 5 weeks for a budget of £25,000. You can go and see that film and then you can tell me what you think about it or write a comment underneath. Okay, guys. See you soon.
Ciao for now.